cats, one tiny house. Is it possible? I mean, I was always wondering before, I don't know. Can you move into a tiny house with 3 cats? How do animals work in a tiny house? Our goal is to be on our property, in which case they will have a much larger yard. I think I would say, of course, anything is possible. I think it depends on the cat, it depends on the people. It's what works for you guys together. But I think we've done a really good job so far making it work with our family of technically 5 with our 3 kitties here. We've got some possible tips and tricks and things that have worked for us for ideas for living with animals or cats in a tiny house, and little things we've encountered and how we've combated them. So our 3 kitty cats are Lady Barnabas Banks the first. She is our eldest, a 12-year-old Maine Coon. We adopted her from the Holland Woodward Center in San Diego, and she is the queen of the household. Being a bit older, she has shifted into slightly a different activity level. Lived in a townhouse before that had 1,400 square feet. She basically only lived on 1 floor, which is semi the equivalent of our tiny house. It was just simple for her. For her personality type and her activity level, we didn't think it would be much of a transition shifting into a tiny house. Our next kitty cat is Lord Joseph Benedict III of Mill Creek. I'm not going to fully dive into that. Yes, our cats have really long names. It's a whole thing. Mr. Joseph, Mr. Bobo. He is 7 years old. Somebody that I used to work for had him as a kitten, and it wasn't a good fit for their household, so I had fallen in love with him and ended up commandeering that adorable little kitty. He's definitely an active kitty. He, to be honest, likes bugging the other cats more than not sometimes. So being in a smaller space with him has been interesting because I feel like it's a lot easier for him to be in the other cat's business. We knew that when we were here, we would need to do something just like our youngest kitty that I'll mention in a moment, do something for him that would give him a little bit more options and be able to get his energy out. So our youngest, almost 1 year old, is Professor Foxley the Fourth. He's a Turkish Von. He is a little ball of joy, little ball of energy, always into everything, wants to be inside, wants to be outside, the whole thing. Because kitties can be little balls of energy, and I definitely did not want to dampen his personality, energy level, or his creativity, or anything of the sort. After that, having noted that our tiny house is about 320 square feet, for our cats, we wanted to do the best that we could to expand on that square footage. And what I mean by that is when you put something on the wall for your cats, or if you have a cat tree in the house for the cats that just gives them extra levels to be on and places to be, it actually expands their square footage of their accessible space. Like, we can only walk on the floor, so we're only counting the floor square footage. But if for some reason people could walk on walls, we'd probably start adding that into our footage of space because it's just like more space you can access, right? Okay, cool. So cats can go on shelves on the wall, which literally just gives them more space, gives them more square footage. So we'd already been using Catastrophic Creations, which we love so much. And what's really cool is you can actually buy them from Amazon too. So I will link them down below, along with a lot of the other things that I'm mentioning that are cat related, because we do a lot of our shopping on Amazon / they happen to carry a lot of things that we use. So if you're interested in anything, feel free to give it a little look down there. But we fell in love with Catastrophic Creations after seeing the products that they make, the different designs that they're able to do. We had things for our home that we just brought with us, and we've installed what we can here. We basically have 4 spots that have shelves on the walls for the kitties, giving them places to jump to, and we've made sure that they're all easily accessible for all of our kitty cats. I think it's very interesting. The other day, Jared was looking at something that said that a cat at 7 years old is technically a senior, so 2 of our cats are at least seniors, and then Barney being 12, they said she was geriatric. I was like, what? Geriatric? My little baby? I don't think so, but that's what they're technically calling her. So we want to do what we can to make it a little bit easier on her, smaller jumps to make. She also loves going up to the lofts and the different places we have access to, so we want to make sure that it's not just something that our youngest little Foxley can jump to with all of his energy and his super young legs, but something that she can also access. We've kind of made this little stair step thing here that they'll use to go from the ground up to the loft and then on top of our kitchen cabinets. And then that's another thing I wanted to mention is tiny houses oftentimes have lofts. I think it's really important to make sure that your cats do have access to the lofts, because that, like I mentioned, is just adding even more square footage for them to access. Again, with that square footage, we decided to add a cat cage that technically attaches to the outside of our tiny house. At the place that we were living before, we used to have a second floor balcony, and our cats would love sitting outside in the balcony. They would watch the birds go by, they had the smells of the outside, the sounds of the outside, and so we wanted to find something that duplicated that here for them. So we ended up moving it to right in front of one of our windows, and Jared was able to remove the screen on part of it, and like temporarily remove the screen, so we're actually able to fix it to its normal status when we're done with it. And we just have the cat cage literally right outside the window, a cabinet right in front of the window, and so all the time Foxley's running to the window, he'll paw at it, he'll meow at it to be let inside and outside. It's just their extra little balcony, and it also works really well because that can give them good separation. We wanted to be conscious of ways that if need be that we could separate the cats, but there aren't any doors in here really besides the bathroom door, but then there are litter boxes in there, so we can't really separate cats by having them like in that room or not in that room, because again, we're keeping them away from their litter box. So having a cat cage like this has worked out well for us in case we needed that. And it's cute because all three of them have actually grown to love the cat cage. Foxley was the one who loved it from the get-go, and the other two were a bit more timid about it, but they've all gotten really brave at this point and they're loving being outside. And on top of that, we just wanted to make sure that we had lots of little things for them to play with, things to stimulate their little brains. We have a bird feeder attached to our window here, which they just love watching the birds. There's a what we call a cat run that Jared found at Costco one day. It's a little S-shaped tube that the cats can run through. Being in a tiny house with the small space that we have, we didn't want to get something huge, and what I love about this is that it actually accordions down to be a smaller object, so it's not always this huge tube that they're running around. We can condense it, and then when we're not using it all the time, we keep it up in our upper loft, and then sometimes if the kitties are a little extra restless, or if we're going to head out for a little bit, or we just want to give them a little something extra to play with, we'll put it down here on the main floor. And we've also kind of found a way to make it so that it can S-hook underneath our table and a little bit more out of the way, and the cats love it. They'll just hang out in it, they play, it just gives them another little dynamic. Also for lounging, chilling places, I mean, if we get packages in the mail, we'll keep a box for a day or two, let them hang out. We've got actually the air filter box that we cut in half that's been chilling here for definitely a few days, and the cats have loved being in that. Boxes. Cats love boxes. Isn't it funny that the things that you don't pay for are typically the things they love the most? That's what we find. Or at least that you don't pay for them. Like Foxley, he loves his hair ties. We're always playing with hair ties with him. And it's the little things. Another thing that's really important for cats is having somewhere to scratch on, and so with the cat shelves on the wall, there is one that is a spiral they can scratch on, so that's awesome. But then we wanted to have something else, so we have what my mom actually gave us, technically initially for donating. The second we got it, cats just loved it. They initially gravitated towards it, scratching all up on it, and we're like, well, now we can't get rid of that, there's no way. Looking online, and you can buy replacements for the inside scratching board, so I think it's great, it's super sustainable, it's a recyclable product even after it's been used by the cats, and then you can buy the inserts and replace them or flip them, just get a lot of use out of it. So for Christmas, we bought new replacements for the kitty cats for that. Came with the 2-pack, so one is in it now, and then the other one we actually put on top of one of the kitchen cabinets because the cats like to hang out up there, you know, more square footage space. They chill on it, they scratch it, they love it. Of course, it's almost impossible for cats to not scratch on things that they aren't supposed to, even when you give them plenty of places to scratch. But if I could just give our couch that I'm sitting on right now another little nod here. Sometimes our cats will scratch the end of the couch, and one day I had this epiphany that because our couch is modular, that even if they completely mess up that spot there, even though we're working on it, and it's really not that terrible, you really can't tell, but they are constantly like leaning to scratch, and I'm like, but I had the epiphany one day that that piece, because again it's modular, could go anywhere else on the couch. So if we one day are like, okay, well it's too ratty, it's too raggedy, you don't have to get a couch cover, you don't have to replace the couch, you could either just replace that piece individually, or I could move it to a different part in the couch that isn't seen. So burrow. I just thought that was really cool. And sometimes, even when we let Mr. Foxley outside and are giving him all of the attention in the world, he still wants more outside time. And sometimes the cage is not enough. It does not suffice. So we are working on kitty walks, okay? We're working on it. There used to be a different harness that we would use with him, but he was always so uncomfortable in it. He would move strangely in it, and it was very secure, so we liked that about it, but it was just difficult to put on. It did not create the right situation. So after moving, we ended up buying a different type of harness. It velcros at the top of the chest, and then it velcros on the stomach, so it's a lot easier to adjust, to take on and off, and he just seems a lot more comfortable in it too. So with that, we've tried taking him out probably twice, and each time we got a little bit further, but by a little bit further, I mean like a couple yards. Last time we carried him out, we had him in his little leash harness, and he basically just wanted to run under the trailer and check out under the trailer, and I'm like, well, that's not what we're doing. That's not the option here. And if he wasn't under the trailer, he's like, then I just want to go inside. And of course, we're not going to let him chase birds, so he's like, what are you letting me outside for? But we're going to work on it. He's going to love it. He will learn that this is really what he wants, is hanging out outside, taking a little walk. They have a great grass area here that we would love to take him to, so we just got to figure it out. We will figure it out. Baby steps. One of the first things when moving that I knew that we wanted to do with our cats was get them trackers. We had a Tractive brand tracker before for one of our cats, but we ended up not being a huge fan of that tracking system in the end, and so when we needed to buy some for all of the kitties, we ended up going with Jiobit. We have been very happy with it so far. One of the best things is it tracks with Bluetooth and cellular, so using cell phone towers, it can track your animal practically anywhere, and they make them for both kids and animals, so people will use them to literally track their kids as well. So they are very accurate. Battery can easily last over a week depending on how close or far the tracker is from its home beacon, and if it's like conserving energy, what have you. But we find that we just charge them the once a week. It makes us feel so much better about the kitties. We've had to use it once or twice when they've gotten out here, because where we're staying there are a lot of other cats around, there are a couple other dogs around, and thank goodness we aren't near any major roads, but it's just given us that peace of mind in case they sneak out and they are in a new environment. We can always track them. Another must that I have found, especially because living in a tiny house, not as much space inside, there's so much space outside, taking them on walks, and hi Mr. Bobo. Hey Mr. Bobo. Them going outside, and all of the other cats that we have around here that live here. We've seen raccoons outside, there are dogs outside. We figure there's a high possibility for fleas and ticks. So we have a flea and tick spray that we've been using, vegan, cruelty-free. Ours is a lemongrass scent, I believe. Another thing to note with living in a tiny house with cats is possibly the temperature. We found that we don't retain our heat as much as we could. I mean, I think it's pretty good in general, but it does get kind of chilly in here, just being a little bit smaller, and before we get our double pane windows. Mr. Bobo, let Barney do her thing. So we want to have ways to keep the kitties warm. We have tried and failed at getting them sweaters. I think that is just a cause that our kitties are not going to get on board with, but they do love heating pads. Quite a while ago, we purchased a heating pad for the cats when we were still in San Diego, and they honestly like never used it, but thank goodness we kept it, because coming up here, it has been amazing and saving us in many situations. I feel there's always a kitty cuddling up to it. Right now we have it just inside of a box, but it's cool because it doesn't heat until it feels pressure or something on it. So it's not just on all the time and being warm. It waits until, in theory, you have a kitty on it, being cozy, and then it starts heating up. But besides that, they're always hanging out in the sun rays. We've got a lot of windows, so a lot of sun rays, and then they will just hang out in our bed under the covers constantly. Whether we're up there or we're not up there, the cats are always under the covers or on top of the covers, just chilling, napping, being themselves, which is what they did before too on our bed. So not much different, but I'm sure that they're enjoying the warmth that it gives them. And then finally we have what is probably the most important aspect for the cats, the things that really keep them alive. So we have a cat water fountain that we always have running, except for when I'm vlogging, because if I was vlogging it'd be driving you guys crazy and it would be like a waterfall. They really enjoy the running water. If I ever have it off, they practically will never drink out of it. I've been buying the filters in a bulk pack on Amazon because I've been unfortunately going through them so fast. Hi, come on up, boo-boo. I used to not go through them so fast, but being in this new environment, we've just been needing to change the filters more. We were having a little problem with whatever growth in it, but I think that after using, don't mind, Joe's just climbing over all my stuff. I think after running vinegar through it and actually taking the motor pump apart and making sure that's completely clean every single time I clean it, that's made a huge difference. Now I just clean it 2 to 3 times a week. One of those times is always running it through the dishwasher. For our cat food, we do wet food and dry food. For their dry food, we use the Pet Libro automatic feeders. I know, we're plugging in a lot of things to power, even their litter box is plugged into power. But we haven't had an issue with any of this running together at the same time, even with all of our other appliances. And we're on a 30 amp system. So, I mean, I feel pretty confident about whatever people need to run in their place and for probably working on whatever power option that they have. But our automatic pet feeders, they just make life so much easier for us. It's automated, so I mean, what else can you say about that? And we just have them set up so that they're a little distance away from each other, but also not right next to the water. The cats want to eat at the same time they can because they have 2 different bowls. Last but not least, our litter robot litter box. People oftentimes will say that you want to have one more litter box than cats that you have, which I 100% can understand why people have this plan, why people have this theory. But especially being in a tiny house, obviously that's not practical. But that's not the only reason that we just have one litter box. We had switched to the litter robot before we had even moved, and we found that they, for the most part, stopped using the other litter boxes and would only use this litter robot. And we'd heard that story from a lot of other people also that we spoke to, where they kept out the other litter boxes and their cats just stopped using them. So why have out extra litter boxes if they aren't being used and they're all going towards this litter robot? And then it's great because being in a small space, before we could kind of have the litter box in like the bathroom over there or downstairs where it's not seen, not smelled, not heard, you know? But here, there's really no not seen, not smelled, not heard places. So with the litter robot, it's constantly basically scooping itself, rotating. There's always clean litter in it, and it really traps the smell really well underneath in the pull-out drawer. We have the LR4 litter robot right now. Before we had the 3. So honestly, both of them are great. This one though is a little bit smaller, so even better for the tiny house. And it's cool because it does link up to our phone also. So that was another aspect of the 4 versus the 3. And we just use compostable bags in the bottom where it fills up when it's done. We toss it and then we're good. We also have a little added tread that we have put on our staircase here that is carpet that we bought online. We cut it to the size and use the built-in adhesive that it already had on it, but then also used a staple gun and attached it so that it wouldn't move. Tried it on the first 2 bottom steps. It's been going great so far, so we're gonna add them on the rest of them, and that'll also help a lot with the cats and just being able to get their claws into something and not slipping when they're on the ladder. But honestly, they do great on the ladder. I'm so impressed. They mastered it within the first day or 2, and they're so cute when they run up and down it. I love it. So in the end, again, is it possible to have 3 cats in a tiny house? Yes, it's definitely possible. I don't know what cat number I would put a limit on there. It's just making the space work for the kitty cats, for whatever animal you have hanging out in your tiny house. But I'm so curious, do any of you guys live in tiny house with animals? How many animals do you have? What kind of animals do you have? I'm so curious. If you guys have any kitty questions, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a like and a subscribe if you haven't already. And I look forward to sharing with you guys as our kitty adventures continue. I'll see you guys on Tuesday with another video. So until then, bye.